I'm here with Andy Worthington, author of The Guantanamo Files, the stories of the 774 detainees in America's illegal prison. And Andy is in Berkeley for the Berkeley Says No to Torture week of events. And Andy, you had one more story you wanted to share with us.
I was going to talk about one of the many men who were rounded up in Pakistan, far from the battlefields of Afghanistan. And you know, this is a man who had been living in Pakistan for many years. He was a hospital administrator. And what had happened with him was that he had complained about some corrupt people in the Pakistani police force who had been stealing supplies from his hospital. So to get their revenge on him, these people shopped him to the US forces and said that he was a terrorist. You know, and that was it. He was taken to Guantanamo. He was held in Guantanamo for 5.5 years. None of the allegations that were laid against him were ever true. It was simply that. He was a hospital administrator, no involvement in military activity or terrorism, simply shopped to US forces by these Pakistanis that he'd complained about. And yet it took all this amount of time to get him out. And you know, and I've read reports about him, and I've seen photographs of him, and all the descriptions are of a man who bears no malice against the United States. I mean, a man with a fantastically sunny personality. Were you to see the picture of him with his young children, you know, and it sadly is not. This is not a unique story. Guantanamo. I wouldn't want to say that they didn't get people who look like the bad guys. There are a small number of them. I wouldn't want to say that they didn't get soldiers, but soldiers are not terrorists. But what they also got by their paying bounty payments, by their refusal to go through any of the established Geneva Convention screening processes, they collected a lot of innocent people.
Very high bounty payments, we should say.
Very high bounty payments. The average was about $5,000 a head. In Afghanistan, that's the equivalent of about $250,000. In Pakistan, about $100,000 to $125,000. And you can imagine if somebody was walking around a neighborhood in the United States offering that kind of money for a stranger that you didn't like the look of, or for a rival that you had, it would be very easy to hand them in exchange for that kind of money.
Where do we go from here, Andy? Because on the show we were saying that in this country we're not really talking about torture. The last conversation we've had is waterboarding torture? There really aren't. Other than circles, I definitely want to give kudos to people in Berkeley and in the activist community about bringing these people to justice. But other than that, the conversation ends at, is waterboarding torture? How do you take it to the next level and demand what the South Americans, for example, have been demanding for decades? We want accountability.
Well, I suppose you have to really chip away at it. I mean, first of all, you know, we have to be able to say clearly and categorically that trying to keep the conversation locked on is waterboarding torture or not question is just simply wrong. Waterboarding is torture. Tortura del agua is what the Spanish Inquisition called it. They were honest in a way that the Bush administration wasn't, by saying, no, it's an enhanced interrogation technique. And the Obama administration isn't being honest by just saying we don't even want to go anywhere near it. Torture is torture. Torture is illegal according to US law. Torture is also morally corrosive. It has a terrible effect on the people who are forced to do the torturing. And that spreads, I think, like a virus through society, which is not good for the health of society. Torture endangers US troops abroad. I think America has been very lucky to date that people haven't captured Americans and said, I'll tell you what we're going to do, actually. We're going to do to you exactly what you've been doing to other people. Torture is counterproductive in fighting terrorism because what it does is create more anger amongst people, and that creates more people who potentially want to be your enemy. Torture is also useless. You do not extract useful information by doing it. It takes a kind of callous bully boy mentality that was developed by the Bush administration to think that only extreme violence is the way to get answers. The way to get answers out of people you captured is to play psychological games with them. Or even, and this might sound flippant, but this is what some interrogators, battlefield interrogators, have said. I heard a great anecdote from Iraq, what are your secrets to getting somebody to speak to you? And he said, well, usually it's a packet of cigarettes and a hot meal. Kindness was thrown out of the window by the Bush administration, that only soft people would treat their enemies with kindness. Actually, a lot of people expect violence, and kindness they are surprised by, and they will then talk. But, all of those elements, to me, create the most compelling picture about why anybody who tries to justify torture on any level is wrong. There isn't a point at which you can say, oh yeah, but, okay, that and that and that and that are wrong, but this bit about it is good. There is nothing good about it. And if we could get people to understand that by keeping on about all these different elements, then I would hope that eventually we kind of win this argument, because I think it's very important for the soul of the nation, honestly, for people to understand that kind of barbaric activity is not healthy, as well as not being useful, and as well as being illegal.
And just quickly, we just got news in April that Argentina's last director, Reinaldo Bignon, was sentenced to 25 years in prison for kidnappings and torture carried out under the 76 to 83 regime. Do you think any U.S. officials will, in our lifetime, well, it has to happen in our lifetime, will they be held accountable for any of this?
I don't know. I mean, I would say that in the end it has to happen, because otherwise the message that has been sent to the United States and to the rest of the world is that you can have 2 terms in the White House and you can break whatever law, whatever international law you want to, and you can get away with it. I cannot see at all that is a good message to be sending. That can't be a good message to send to the United States, that the highest people in the land can break the law and get away with it. I don't know. Maybe it won't come to prosecutions, but I can't see that nothing can happen. I think that at some point there has to be nationally a discussion about what it meant, about how not to do it again. Maybe that would be something like a proper investigation that might not involve punishment. I mean, I don't think that is as appropriate as following prosecutions which are legally required. But if that was what it took, then something that brings this to an end and that establishes that it is completely wrong, it was not the way to behave, and that we can do things better than that. Because that's what's been lost out of this, is that higher values have been discredited. Higher values of being kind in unexpected situations in interrogation can yield results. Of being clever can yield results. And torture is not clever.
Andy Worthington is author of The Guantanamo Files, the stories of the 774 detainees in America's illegal prison. He's also co-director of the new film, and be sure to check this one out. It's called Outside the Law, Stories from Guantanamo. Andy is a British journalist currently in town in Berkeley for the Berkeley Says No to Torture week of events. Andy, thank you so much, and thanks for your work.
Thank you.